Okay, you guys, I'm so happy. I'm here with Sean.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Sean. And he's going to give us I got here a little too late to get they've already got the wood stove started. But when I walk out of here, I'll show you how clean it is with the way these guys do it. Sean has agreed to give us a verbal demonstration, explain how to do it.
Yeah, so, a lot about wood burning is a balance of things, right? There's so much that goes into it, and really it kind of starts with making sure that everything is safe because, well, we're building a fire in your home, right? So it's always important to make sure that things are installed properly, it's serviced, at least annually, it's inspected and looked at, not just serviced, but actually inspected, making sure there's no damage or deterioration or anything coming loose or whatever.
And does service include the cleaning of a chimney too?
Right, correct, yeah. So sweeping out the chimney and removing any of the combustible deposits, creosote that builds up into the system.
That's real important.
It is, yeah.
For several reasons?
Yeah, one in the prevention of like a chimney fire, because if you've got fuel in the chimney and if it gets hot enough, well, it'll ignite and have
creosote is like a fuel.
It is, essentially, yeah. It's unburned fuel. So, yeah, it's just condensed. So,
okay.
But also, too, just for, if you get enough buildup in your pipe, it can also restrict flow, and so it can cause smoking into the house, so it can affect air quality inside the home. So that's another very important thing.
Can it affect air quality outside of the home as well?
That has to do more with the appliance and how it's installed and how it's burned. That's kind of an emissions thing. So, and regarding emissions, it really kind of comes down to the appliance is one of the biggest factors, So, if you've got a really old appliance that doesn't have like modern technology in it as far as a reburn system or catalytic combustor, it's going to have a lot of emissions. So there's a lot of particulates going out into the atmosphere. But any modern stove, is tested and listed to EPA standards, current EPA standards. And so the emissions are super low with modern appliances.
They are indeed.
Yeah. And as long as they're being used, appropriately and properly and things like that, as Kim was saying here, you get almost no emissions coming out. You can't see anything coming out.
Cannot, and you smell very little.
Yeah, which is a good thing for the environment.
For everyone.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, and again, it starts kind of with the appliance, having a modern stove, and there's lots of different styles and types out there. But again...
Modern being the exhaust thing with the smoke, how does that work?
Yeah, modern meaning it has some form of reburn system inside of it, whether it's a series of air tubes, whether it's a catalytic combustor, or a hybrid, which has a combination of those parts in it. And what it's doing is it's basically just reburning the smoke that would normally go up the chimney. So it kind of like reignites it and it cleans it up. So you can kind of like think of like a catalytic converter on a car. It's cleaning up the emissions that are coming out, the exhaust coming out of the car. That's essentially what's happening in a wood stove as well. There's just some different designs. So that's part of it. The other part though is of course making sure that we're using them correctly, making sure that we're using good seasoned dry wood. There's a really big kind of misnomer with wood that, seasoned wood is okay. If it's been dead for a couple of years, then it's fine. But if that wood has been sitting out in the elements or it's not properly covered or protected, it's still absorbing moisture, especially if it's out in the elements, right? And that can be a bad thing. If you've got too much moisture to your wood, it'll cause more buildup in the system. It will cause more emissions. It will cause a higher risk for chimney fires and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really important that you've got
for everyone inside and out.
And dry wood, so you want to have it split and cut.
Oh, I see. So seasoned, not because it's just older, it has to be dry through and through.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So it's really important that it's dry as well.
Seasoned and dry.
Yes,
and seasoned taking 1 year, 6 months, depending on
the wood.
And the weather.
If it's a light wood, like a cedar or a pine or something like that, it'll take less time, 6 months to a year to dry out. But if it's a hardwood, like an oak or something like that, a madrone, it can take up to 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Fully dry. And what I mean by 2 years of fully curing and drying, it means it needs to be cut and stacked in a dry area for that amount of time.
To happen, for it to even occur, right?
Yeah. And so having a storage shed or a garage or at least covering it on the top and the sides, A lot of people will cover the wood with tarps, which kind of keep, rain off and snow off.
But
of it.
moisture can build up in there.
Exactly, yeah.
And
When you
make
have
it kind of
fully covered,
ganky, yeah.
It holds moisture in as well.
It's almost
So
worse, huh?
It can be.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
I found that it can make it worse. So
Okay.
you want to have air ventilation is kind of the thing. So again, having it stacked and keeping the water off the top, but allowing enough airflow that it can dry out and not just hold all that moisture in. So there are devices out there that can help you tell if your wood is dry. They're called moisture meters. There's a couple of different styles. There's like a probe style where you stick it into the wood and it tells you what the percentage of moisture is. Or there's a contact one where you just put it on the wood and again, it's like a little digital readout to tell you what the moisture percentage is. So that's one way to know for sure if your wood is dry or not. I always recommend people pick up one of those. They're really inexpensive. You can pick them up for $35 to $45. They make some really high-end ones, but usually that range is going to be good enough for the homeowner. And that range, that percentage range that you're looking for, say if you were to go grab one, ideally you want to be between 7% and 15%. That's where we shoot for in that range.
Okay.
Some manufacturers of appliances say you can go up to 20% or 25%. But just in our experience, we found even sometimes 20% is still a little too wet. Again, it depends on how you burn it. So that's kind of like the other factor and the other
Which you're going to
balancing
show
act,
us, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So temperature is everything in a wood stove. Getting things hot enough in the beginning and then maintaining that heat is critical. So even if you do have some wood that's a little on the wet side, if you're burning it hot enough and giving it enough oxygen, it will still burn okay.
And kind of clean with that, okay.
Yeah. But one of the common issues is, people start their fire and they won't a lot of the times use kindling or they won't use paper. They'll use little fire starters and big pieces of wood. And what that does is it doesn't really generate a whole lot of heat. And then once you kind of get a little flame going, and it starts, then we're shutting things down right away. Trying to conserve the wood is usually like what people are trying to do. But what actually happens is you create a whole list of issues by doing that.
Like a domino effect.
Yeah, one, you never get the stove up to temperature or the chimney system up to temperature, which in turn translates to loss of efficiency. So you'll actually use more wood. You will create more emissions. So again, you're going to have more buildup. And you're not going to get as much heat out of it either.
Right.
So it's important in the beginning, that first 20 to 40 minutes, really taking your time, building a really, really hot fire.
A good base, right?
Yeah, you want to get some coals established. You want to have really, don't be afraid of really making it hot as long as, everything's, again, I recommend inspecting it, making sure it's installed right, making sure you've got your clearances and things like that. There's no damage. But as long as all those things are in place, these are designed to burn hot. It's kind of like a sports car. They want to go fast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, burning it hot, getting everything up to temperature, and once it's up to temperature, it'll actually sustain that for a longer period of time, which means you'll get a longer heat out.
It's more efficient.
Exactly. It'll hold the wood for a longer period of time, too. So it's kind of an interesting thing how that works. But also, it helps keep the chimney cleaner, so that way you're not running into the issue of the chimney getting plugged or, high risk for chimney fires and things like that.
And a cleaner looking smoke.
Yeah.
Because smoke, what if it's blue? It's oily. If it's a blue smoke, right, it's kind of oily.
Well, yeah, generally you're not going to get like smoke coming out the top that'll be blue. It'll be kind of, a gray to a, going to a darker, it doesn't usually turn black per se, but it can be a very, very dark gray. And the darker it is, the denser it is, meaning the more particulates it has, the more fuel is in there. So if you've got really dark smoke coming out your chimney, it means either, you're running a very old appliance that's just letting all the emissions go out.
Completely inefficient.
Or maybe how you're using it, there's something wrong there.
And the wood, the type of wood, maybe?
The type of wood, again, if it's too wet, or not burning it hot enough, right, can cause that. So, that's a good way to kind of tell, hey, how am I burning? Look at the smoke coming out. Now, in any wood stove, whether it's modern or old, when you're first starting, of course, you're going to get some smoke, but it's typically like a light, gray. It's not going to be super dense.
It's a minimum, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the worst part of it. You're saying that's when it's going to show the most. Because when I walked up here, I didn't even know if you had this going yet.
Yeah.
That's how clean they
Yeah.
got it going.
Yep, yep.
Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
and another really good kind of like indicator, it does vary manufacturer to manufacturer, model to model on the wood stove, but the glass, right? The glass is a really good indicator for you. If your glass is clean like this is, you know, you can see it's a little hazy just from, I mean, we probably haven't cleaned it this week yet, but if your glass is clean like this, you know you're burning it hot enough. But if the glass is all black, crusty, and you got hard stuff on it, that means that either one, that wood that you're burning has probably got too much moisture to it, or you're not burning it hot enough, or a combination of both of those. There is instances, yes, where it can be the stove too. It's just kind of the design. There's certain brands out there that they tend to have a dirtier glass just because of how they're designed. But in general, the glass is a really good way for you as a homeowner being inside, looking at it to tell, hey, am I burning okay? Am I not burning?
And it's so much homier.
Yeah.
I love
and
the, yeah.
See the fire and all that.
So would you say that even with an old, outdated, inefficient stove, the type of wood and how a person's burning habits could also make a difference in the emissions indoors and outdoors?
Yeah. Again, a lot of it is driven by temperature.
Okay. No matter
There
what the
kind of
stove is.
Yeah, there is a threshold with those older appliances.
Yeah,
It's
they can
so
only-
efficient you can get,
I know,
right? You know,
yeah.
So you're always going to have some emissions. You're always going to have
Nothing like these.
that gray, dirty smoke kind of coming out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how hot you're burning it. Again, because it's just the design. But with a modern stove, yeah,
These all meet EPA standards.
correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In the U.S. at least, you know, stove manufacturers aren't allowed to make anything that doesn't meet those standards. So it has to meet those standards. And as a dealer, we're not allowed to sell anything that doesn't meet those standards either.
Okay.
So like we can't actually sell anything that doesn't meet the current standards.
Okay.
So,
This holy smoke. These guys rock. They've been here, I've been in this county for 30 years. You guys have been here before me.
we've been here since '79, so we've been here a long time.
So
I mean,
20
of course, I haven't been around that long, but the
Holy
company
smoke,
has.
of course, yeah, it's part of this place, you know, it's integral to this area. Okay. So how do we start a good fire?
What I recommend doing, it all kind of depends on your stove design. You know, is it deep where you can put your wood in, you know, depth-wise, or is it a wider stove where you kind of have to put it in sideways? That will kind of change it up a little bit. But like on this stove here, we can put our wood in depth-wise, which I prefer. And the way I kind of do it is I'll take some medium pieces, you know, 3 or 4 inches in diameter, and I'll put one on either side, you know, going down the length of the stove. And you kind of create like a little valley, and then that valley I'll fill it with paper, and then I'll crisscross, you know, 3 to 5 layers of kindling on top of that.
This
You can see
kindling here?
yeah.
Look how clean and beautiful that kindling is.
Yeah, and that's just repurposed pallet wood, really. We get tons of pallets out here.
Which is not treated, it's just
It's
pallets.
not,
Okay.
exactly, yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and
Nice.
So you crisscross your kindling, and then you take some more small, medium pieces, you know, some pieces that maybe are 2 inches to 4 inches in diameter. You put a couple of those on top, and make sure that, you know, your air control is all the way open. If your stove has a bypass damper, you want to make sure that that's open, and then you go ahead and light it, you know. And then once the kindling starts burning and everything kind of burns down and shrinks, then you can put a couple more medium pieces in there on top. And then
So you're building your coal base.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And the smaller the wood, the easier it is to start, and the more heat you get going, and you'll get coals a lot faster too. If you're starting with just all big pieces, it takes a long time for that to break down. It takes a long time for that to start burning.
And that's going to make a difference in the emissions outdoors too, obviously. The heat.
Yep, yeah, the quicker
You can't get it as hot as you can with the base you just described.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and so kind of the goal is getting coals as fast as possible, right?
Right,
The smaller
okay.
the wood that you're using, it kind of
The quicker you can build your base.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so there's kind of like, you know, with wood, there's a process on how there's like 4 stages to burning, and it starts with like the drying stage. That's what has to happen first. So this is why it's critical to have dry wood. Is you've got to evaporate all the moisture out of the wood before it will actually start burning, right? So that's where also smaller wood will dry out faster. If you've got a big old log like this, well, it's going to take a long time for
Years.
that heat and energy to get all that moisture out of there. Versus if you've got a little tiny piece of wood, like, you know, there's less surface area, so it'll get that moisture out really quick and rapidly. Right?
So do you ever, if you want to like go all night and not have to get up, when people throw those big logs on that haven't been split, is that not a good idea, or is it
That's okay as long as it's
hot enough?
dry and you've already got everything up to temperature.
Okay.
One recommendation I do for really good long overnight burn is, you know, say you've got some coals in there already, you know, some wood already burning. You know, you can load it up as much as you can, you know, fill your stove, get your pieces kind of, you know, jigsaw puzzled in there.
To allow airflow, right? No? Yeah?
Yes and no. I mean, again,
You don't want to smother it.
Well, yeah, so you want to load it up, but don't shut it down right away. You know, leave the air control open. Again, if your stove
Leave
has
it
a
wide
damper,
open.
leave your damper open
Okay.
for like 5 to 10 minutes, and let all that new wood that you just put in there get fully engulfed in flame and burning really hot before you shut it down. And what that does is, again, going back to our stages, is it takes care of that drying stage for you. It gets all the moisture out of that new wood that you just put in there. So that way, when you shut the air down, it's still burning efficiently. It's still burning thoroughly, right? So that's a really key thing for getting that nice, good, clean overnight burn.
That's such a great tip.
Yeah.
All right, and so, anything else we need to keep in mind? Oh, does this have a temperature? How do you know when you have it hot enough? What's a good indicator?
Yeah. So with any modern stove that has a catalytic combustor in it, and the combustor is kind of like this little honeycomb device that sits at inside the unit at the top.
Can we see it in one of these?
Let's see. What would be a good one? Any one of these would work. Let's see if we can. I don't have my phone on me.
Oh, I don't have my
Dark in there,
flashlight.
but
Oh,
I don't know if you can see up in there, but this is kind of this is the catalytic combustor here.
I don't have my flashlight up
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Well,
it's
my
a little
phone,
dark.
my
Anyways.
phone has a flashlight.
Oh, well,
Here.
you can maybe use that.
Here, hold this. Don't touch any buttons. Whatever you want to show, go ahead. Because this is So how do you make the light? What is flashlight? Do you know? I think I should, huh?
I could grab a flashlight real quick. If you want.
Probably faster than me trying to learn
That's okay.
tech, right? He's going to show us, I think he called it a catalytic converter in a car. Because I don't know if you can see it, but this is, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's that honeycomb thing up in there, right? So you can, that's the catalytic combustor. And there's
Catalytic
different
combusters.
types, yeah,
Okay,
but
thank you.
that's essentially what it is. And the thing about a stove with one of those in there, it is critical to get them up to temperature, otherwise they won't work. So the magic number for a catalytic combustor is like 500 degrees. So you have to get it up to 500 degrees before it actually starts working. I always encourage people to get it up even hotter than that.
Hotter than 500 degrees.
Yeah, I usually shoot for like 750. And you can see on the top of the stove, yeah, it's got this little heat probe here, and there's a little needle. So as the stove heats up, this little needle starts kind of climbing. And you've got an active range and then an inactive range. So it'll tell you when it's in that active range and when it's getting up to temperature. So most stoves will have something like this. Sometimes they're just like this. Sometimes, like on this stove over here that we have running, it's a digital readout, so you can turn it on and it will tell us it's 774 degrees in there right now. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it feels wonderful in here.
Yeah. So we've actually got things kind of shut down a little bit too. So the other thing that you can do too, say if your stove doesn't have one of those, or if it doesn't have a catalytic combustor in it, you can get just kind of like a little stovetop thermometer. So something like this. which is kind of the same concept. You know, it shows you a creosote range and
That
then
can
the
be used
best.
on any wood stove?
It can. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And there's lots of different versions. Some will have temperatures on it. Some will just have like these active, inactive ranges.
Okay.
And to be totally honest, it's kind of subjective. You know, there's different styles out there, and there's different ones that have different ranges. Really, I recommend getting one with a temperature, you know, and depending on where you put it, then you can base it off of that temperature. So for instance,
okay.
you know, right here at the front of the stove on this top here, you know, there's just a single plate of steel. If you put it there, once the stove gets up to about 500 degrees, you know you're hot enough, right?
Okay.
So that's a good range. But if
Okay.
you put it up here, there's actually an airspace, or what they call a convection top. There's an airspace right here.
Uh-huh.
So this surface is not going to be as hot as there. So if you put that thermometer up here, you're actually going to have to get it hotter to get that same kind of reading.
How
right?
far does it vary between the two locations?
It can sometimes be like 200 degrees.
Oh my
difference.
God,
Yeah.
200 degrees difference.
Yeah.
Shit.
So if you put it here, it might be 500, but then you put it up there, it might be 300 or something.
Oh, wow.
So where you put it is part of it as well.
So
and the stove design, you know, do you have a double top stove with an airspace, or is it just a single top? So you just got to be mindful of that. And also too, sometimes they make ones that go on the pipe, and you got to pay attention. Is it a double wall pipe? Is it a single wall pipe? Because a single wall would be hotter than a double wall.
Of course, that
So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Little bit of airspace makes a
It really
difference.
does. Yep. Yeah. Air is actually one of the best like insulators. You know it. And the thing about heat, well, it naturally rises, right? So, you know, a lot of modern stoves have side panels and a back panel and a top panel. So that way, as it heats up the air around it and disperses that heat versus coming off and overheating things like the wall or things next to it. So
Yeah.
So it helps with clearances having those air spaces around it. So, yeah.
So, okay, he's clearly got it going. And it's not time to add any wood yet, right?
We could, yeah. I mean,
Because
there's
if
room
you
in there,
do,
but-
if you add a piece, I'd like to, well, as soon as you do, I want to go out and show them how darn clean it is.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
I mean, you go out right now if you wanted, or...
okay, I'll go out and I want to show him your, he's a certified chimney professional. Are you coming or are you staying? I'll be right back. Okay. It's up to you. You can come if you want. Come out if you want. Okay, I'll be right back. He's going to stay warm. It's so nice of him to do this. He is a certified chimney professional. And look how clean this is. You can't see anything. You can't see anything. I don't want to get my camera wet, but it's totally clean. I don't smell anything. I don't see anything. It's perfect. Now, if we could get all the chimneys in the county like that, it would improve the air quality and the efficiency. People would save money. Say anything to part with, Sean?
No, other than just make sure to, you know, get your chimney actually inspected by a certified professional. Make sure it's safe. That's always the most important thing. You know, you don't want your house catching on fire. As long as everything's installed properly, you can run these things, you know, really hot and be safe. But if there's a problem, you run a risk. So again, just make sure that it's inspected.
And it's a lifetime. These guys, this thing would last a lifetime.
Yeah.
Or 2 or 3.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Sean.
All right.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, not a problem, Kim.
Thank you so
Yep.
much. Would you mind if I post this on YouTube?
I don't know.
Thank you. Have a good one.